Hi, and welcome to this section on variables. So in this section, we're going to look at memory references. And in that context, we'll take a look at what variables really are. We tend to think of variables as names that we can assign values to, that we can read values back from. But there's a little more to it than just that. And so we'll look at variables in the context of memory references. We'll also look at memory management. And in particular, we'll take a look at something called reference counting. And we'll also look at something called garbage collection. Now, these two things are not quite the same thing. And we'll look at the differences between those two. And we'll also take a look at why it's important for us to understand that. Next, we'll look at dynamic versus static typing. Now, Python is a dynamically typed language, as opposed to other languages like Java or Swift or C++, which are statically typed languages. After that, we'll look at mutability and immutability. Now, you probably already are aware of these concepts, but immutability has some little wrinkles to it that we'll examine in this section. Then we'll look at something called shared references. This is where variables share the same area in memory, they share the same object. And so we'll take a look at what that means in terms of variables and also in terms of functions. When we call functions and pass variables to them, what's going on behind the scenes. Then we'll look at variable equality. Now, we tend to think of variable equality as, well, if they have both the same value, they're equal. But there can also be other instances where maybe we're not talking about the values, but something else. So we'll take a look at variable equality, again, in the context of memory references. And then lastly, we'll look at the fact that in Python, everything is an object. So, the variables that we're used to, like integers and strings and lists, are all objects, but everything else is an object too. Functions are objects, right? Classes obviously are going to be objects when you instantiate them, but classes themselves are actually objects as well. So we'll take a look at that concept in Python, and this actually will follow through in all the remaining sections of this course as well. So this is kind of a foundational step that we need to take. All right, thanks, and I'll see you in the next lecture.